Hello, welcome to or welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, thank you so much for stopping by, and if you are a recurring viewer or subscriber, thank you so much for your continued support of my channel. I really appreciate you all being here. Today, as of recording, it is Sunday, so I thought I would do my weekend reading update, going over what I read last week, what I am working on reading this weekend, and what I am planning on reading next week. And also, I have a couple of new books that I also want to haul for you. So yesterday, I put out a book haul of some books that I got in the middle of last week. They were mainly sort of naval maritime themed books, and I was not expecting to do a second book haul after doing that one. I thought that would be my main book haul for this month. However, today I ended up going to my local bookstore and coming away with some really fantastic finds that I'm very excited about. So I figured I would do one official final book haul of the month here at the start, and then I will dive into the books that I finished last week and then what I am currently reading now. So for the new books for my book haul, the first is the Signet Classics edition of Victor Hugo's Les Mis. So I have read Les Miserables last year, but I read the Penguin Classics edition. So I wanted to get the Signet Classics edition to have the different translation. And I'm checking the name here to make sure I'm correct. This is the Lee Fainstock and Norman McCaffey translation. So I have not read this translation. So I've been wanting to do a reread of Les Mis, maybe towards the end of this year, the start of next year, maybe even. So I thought I would go ahead and pick up a copy just to have it on my shelf, ready and waiting for me. So I'm very excited about this, and I love the musical tie-in cover on this edition as well. So that helped to pick it up. Then the next two books are both different Beowulf translations, and these are for my April buddy read with Steve Donahue. We will be reading 4 different translations of Beowulf and then sort of doing a comparison of all 4 of them, starting with the J.R.R. Tolkien translation. And so for 2 of the translations, I was able to find copies of them, and the first is the Burton Raffles translation. This is also put out by Signet Classics. A slim little thing. This is just the poem itself, just the story itself, no commentary or endnotes or anything like that. But I loved the cover design on it. I thought it was really eye-catching. So I was super excited to see this. And then I was also able to pick up the Seamus Heaney translation, which is the most popular translation of Beowulf, sort of all time. So what I was really excited about seeing in this one is the bilingual translation. So on one side we have the Old English on this side, and then we have the modern translated English on the other side. At this point, I can't really read Old English. I would love to learn, so I thought this would be a great way of sort of maybe to some extent teaching myself how to read it. Then a couple of nature-related books that I am very excited about. The first being Rachel Carson's Silent Spring. And I have this one on my Kindle, and I've been wanting to get a physical copy of it. So when I saw this on the shelf, I knew I had to pick it up. This is a bit of an older copy. It's a little bit beat up, but I thought it would be great to have a physical representation on my shelves. This is one that I have only read once, and it was sort of a very quick read and quite a while ago, and so I would love to sit back down and sort of take my time working my way through it. Then the next one is Kraken by Wendy Williams, the curious, exciting, and slightly disturbing science of squid. And this is one that I've had on my TBR for a while. I became aware of it after reading C. Montgomery's The Soul of an Octopus. And this is supposed to be relatively similar, and I was drawn in by the cover as well. I thought it was a fantastic design, but I was really happy to see this on the shelf. I'm adding this to my oceanography section of my library that's slowly growing, becoming one of the fastest growing sections of my library. I've just really been sort of swept into oceanography and ocean science lately. It's really some fascinating stuff, and so I'm very eager to get into this one. It's not very long either, so I'm not expecting it to be too long of a read. Next, then, I was able to find a copy of The Origin of Species by Charles Darwin. This is the 150th anniversary with an introduction by Ray Comfort. And so I have never read The Origin of Species. It's one that I've wanted to read, and I have been I have been lazy in trying to track down a copy, and then today I sort of ran into this one. I wasn't necessarily looking for it. I was perusing the shelf, looking for a different title, and my eyes landed on this one, and I just picked it up and added it to my pile because it's one of those that I've been wanting to get myself to read. And so I thought just getting the copy, putting it on my shelf, seeing it every day should be the motivation I need to actually pick it up and read it. And then last of the book haul here is the complete short stories of Graham Greene, put out by Penguin Classics. And I've never read anything by Graham Greene. All I know about him is that he is a 20th century American writer. So this will be a complete new endeavor for me. I have no background knowledge of Graham Greene. I've never read any of his works, so I'm hoping that this will be a great introduction into his works and into sort of 20th century American literature as a whole as well. And it's Penguin Classics, so I absolutely love that. I'm a big fan of Penguin Classics. I can add it to my collection, my growing collection of Penguin Classics, but I just love these editions as well. So I'm excited just for even the physical reading experience of this. I think it should be really good. All right, so that is the end of the book haul, and now moving on to my reading week. Last week was a fairly good reading week for me. I made it through 2 books during the week and then 1 book this weekend between all day yesterday and this morning. So the first book that I finished last week was Tinkers by Paul Harding. This is one that I was not planning on reading, and then I stumbled upon a review of it on Goodreads and was incredibly intrigued. So I put it on hold at the library and read it last week. It's short, it's only 190 pages, but it took me about 3 or 4 days to read it just because I was taking it pretty slow. So the essential story of Tinkers is it's the story of a man named George Washington Crosby who is dying. He is an old man, sort of in hospice care in his home, and he is dying. And the book is sort of his looking back on his life. So we get snippets of his life story worked into the story of his father as well, and his father's life, and sort of his father's influence on him, and sort of his remembrance of the past, essentially, and then sort of tied in with a couple other sort of running themes, motifs, if you will, that sort of work through the book. I started out really enjoying it, and then sort of the more that I read, the more I felt that the writing was becoming very repetitive, and the time sequencing as well, sort of the flow of the narrative seemed really clunky towards the middle and the end of the book for me, and especially the ending. I'm not going to spoil it here in case anyone is reading this or wants to read this, but the ending did not work for me, and I really, towards the end of the book, I had lost any sense of connection or sort of sympathies for our characters, specifically our main character. And I was disappointed because at the beginning I felt a great connection with the story, and then I sort of felt that the writing, the narrative, the structure seemed to sort of become very loose and disjointed, and then it just sort of fell apart for me. And that could just be that could just be that I didn't have sort of the right mind frame when I was reading it. I know that a lot of people have really loved this. Specifically, the one review I read on Goodreads that sort of enticed me to read this was very much championing this novel, but it just did not work for me. I still enjoyed it. I'm so glad I read it, but it's certainly not one that I see myself adding to my own library or reading again in the future. Then I moved on to Anthony Trollope's Cousin Henry, and this one is an ex-library copy that I did get on Thrift Books, and they put their library sticker straight on the front of the cover, and so I can't get it all the way off without damaging the actual cover, so that's a little bit annoying. However, this is this was fantastic. This was my first Trollope novel to read. I decided to start with one of his slimmer works instead of one of his 900 plus page novels, such as The Way We Live Now or Can You Ever Forgive Her. I think I will move on to those in the future, but I wanted to start with something small to be introduced to his writing, and I absolutely loved this novel. I read it over the course of 2 days. It's also not very long. I believe it's, let's see, 236 pages, so it's not very long at all. And sort of, we have a couple of different plot threads throughout this novel, but the essential story is we have a man named Indefer Jones who is getting old, and he's sickly, and he knows he's going to die, and he wants to will his estate to his young niece, who is sort of more like a daughter to him. But he knows that he cannot go against sort of the traditions of the past and will his estate to a woman. He needs to will it to his next male heir, and that is his nephew, Henry Jones, who throughout this novel is referred to as Cousin Henry. And so the whole story is sort of this man, Indefer Jones, willing his estate to his nephew, sort of begrudgingly. He doesn't really want to, and he creates a second secret will that actually wills his estate to his niece. And then it's sort of the drama of Henry coming to the estate. No one likes Henry. He's not a very likable figure, not a very likable man. And it's the story of him grappling with the fact of finding this other will and realizing that if he does not come forward with the fact that the will that he signed was not in fact the last true will and testament of Indefer Jones, that he could be thrown in prison. And so we have sort of that plot line, and then there are a couple other plot lines between the niece and a young chaplain named Mr. Owen, who go back and forth in a bit of a romantic relationship, back and forth with multiple proposals and denials and things like that. And I found the story, it was incredibly, it pulled me in right away, and it's slow paced, but it's not boring or dull, but it's very much dialogue heavy, very much set piece heavy. So we only have a couple of main locations where the story takes place, and we get some fantastic lines of dialogue, and sort of the whole atmosphere of the story was very welcoming, and it's certainly one that I see myself coming back to, and it certainly excited me to read more Trollope. So that sort of ties me into my currently reading, and that is I'm currently working my way through The Warden. I started it, I believe, 2 nights ago, and so I'm about halfway through. Absolutely loving that as well. But Cousin Henry was a fantastic read for me. I'm very excited to reread it, and I would highly recommend it. And I'm most likely going to do an independent video review talking about Cousin Henry a little bit more in depth. I don't want to go too much in detail here in this video and save it for a secondary video. So that one may be coming out next week, or maybe the following week, but I do hope to get to that one. Then the next book that I finished reading today is Glorious Misadventures, Nikolai Razumov and the Dream of a Russian America. And this is one that I showed in my book haul yesterday morning, and I had already started it Saturday morning before I sat down to film that video. And I finished it between reading it most of yesterday afternoon and evening, and then into this morning. It's not terribly long. It's right at 300 pages, and it's fairly it is detailed, but it's not incredibly chocked full of meticulous information. So it's one that you can sort of read a little bit more quickly. It's certainly very narrative heavy. Relies very heavily on the narrative of the story, so that really does pull you through. And it used a large amount of primary sources as well, so a lot of journal entries, a lot of letters, so that really also does something for pulling you into the story and giving you a very raw and true feeling for the story and for the figures mentioned, which was really a fantastic reading experience. And this is another one that I may end up doing a dedicated review for it. I may end up mentioning it in a video later on, sort of talking about my favorite books on this topic, sort of on the topic of Russian exploration. But this was one that I did really enjoy. And then moving on to what I am reading moving into next week. Like I said, I am working my way through The Warden by Anthony Trollope, and I am really enjoying it. And I am also finishing up the Book of Disquiet for Classics and Company. We will be doing our end of the book Zoom discussion next weekend, I believe next Sunday. We'll be talking about the Book of Disquiet, so that video will be going up. And then we will be starting in April our next read for Classics and Company, which will be the completed, the collected works of Borges, which I'm very excited for. I will have an announcement video for that going up tomorrow, as will Anne. So if you are interested in joining us for that reading, the link to our Discord server will be in the description down below, so feel free to jump over there. We already have a couple of people chatting in the Borges discussion room over on our Discord server, so there's already stuff sort of starting over there if you want to get in at the action here at the very beginning, so that will be wonderful. And then the other book that I am hoping to start next week, I put it off camera, I just now realized, so I can't grab it, but that is Dead Souls by Nikolai Gogol, and I have the Penguin Classics edition. I'm thinking of trying to read that over the course of this week. I think I'll be able to. I have a couple other books that I definitely want to give priority to, Borges, and then Beowulf as well, my buddy read with Steve Donahue. We will be kicking that off Saturday with the first translation we're doing, which is the Tolkien translation, which is the only version that I have read, and I'm very eager and excited to read it again. I read it one time, and it was about a year and a half ago, and I read it very quickly, so I'm excited to slow down, read it over the course of a week. It's only 80 pages or thereabouts, so it's very doable to sort of stretch it out over a week and just read, a couple of pages here and there. And all the translations are relatively short, so that makes it easy to sort of pick them up throughout the week. So I do want to focus on those, but if I could also fit in Dead Souls into that reading as well, I would really love to, because it's one that's been on my list for a very long time, and I have read a lot of Gogol's other works, and I have yet to read anything by Gogol that I did not enjoy. And the translator of this version is one that I have not read his work before, so I'm very eager to try out a new translator as well. And if I am able to pick up Dead Souls and get into that one, I will talk about it either in a dedicated video midweek or in next week's weekend reading update. And I think that brings us up to speed. I think that is everything that I wanted to say. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Feel free to leave a comment down below if you would like, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now, and happy reading.